This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring program that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Jonathan JT Taylor. Jonathan, how are we?
Good, brother. Good.
Thanks for coming on the show. Very fascinating story. American sniper in the Marines. Many, many years. You done, was it 5 tours?
5 tours, yep.
Never lost a brother either, which is very...
Never lost a brother as in any of my sniper teams. But yeah, that's a pretty big accomplishment.
It was also in the record books that you were the longest sniper kill in Marines history. 1.5 miles, is that correct?
Yeah, 2,426 meters is the official distance. And that's all being investigated right now through the Marine Corps History Division. The package has been accepted. They're just waiting to sign off on the details, but yeah.
To confirm it?
To be confirmed, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, and you've led a very impressive life. Good leader, good role model, family man. Also, your T-shirts here, you gave me one of your T-shirts. Where can people buy these?
Scoutsniper.org. That's our website for the USMC Scout Sniper Association. Mm-hmm. We're a military nonprofit association. It's a membership organization. So we basically take care of Marine snipers and their families. We're the only nonprofit for Marine Scout snipers in the world. So we take pride in that. We take care of our guys. We take care of their families. Anywhere for anything from like, even if your wife needs emergency dental surgery, we'll help with that. There's a lot of nonprofits and a lot of veteran groups out there that take care of the veterans themselves, but we think the family is just as important.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an honourable thing to do. I think we can forget the lost soldiers and especially the men on the streets. And I always say this on the podcast, but the majority of men who fight for their country, but nobody fights for them. When they come back home, it's pretty disgusting, if you ask me, and no doubt we'll get into all that. But before we get into everything, I always like to go back to the start with my guests, get more of a bit of understanding about you, where you grew up and how it all began.
Cool. So I grew up in a small town in the U.S., in Mississippi, in a state called Mississippi. Very rural, and grew up to a single mother. Father was never around. And basically we were kind of protected by my mom's parents, my grandparents. They were kind of always there to make sure my mother didn't, completely fail. So I kind of consider my grandparents all like my parents. Although my mother was always around and she tried her best. She had her own struggles. But other than that, I grew up in a rural area. I'm the only person in my family to ever go to college, only person to ever graduate, one of the only people to ever leave my town and make something different, So I take pride in that. And yeah, I grew up playing sports, grew up being super active. but always kind of had a chip on my shoulder because I think I always kind of felt like I needed to be validated somehow. I needed to be different, stand out. I think a lot of that roots from just the fact that, my father wasn't in the picture. My family wasn't wealthy. And I just kind of felt like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to stand out. I was boxing and kickboxing at a young age, which is something that's nobody in my area did. I had to drive like an hour and a half, just to go to training. But I liked being able to say that I did different stuff, because where I grew up, it's either you hunt, you fish, you play sports. That's it. So I got into motocross. I was riding motorcycles. I was doing anything I could to be different. That's really what led me into the Marine Corps.
Did you feel as if there was more pressure on your shoulders with not having a father figure? Did your friends and other people around you have stable household parents? It's not that your life wasn't stable, but the role model, the father figure, the discipline, every kid needs it. And I think, and it's mad because the majority of people in the army or Marines or some sort of combat, they do come from a broken home. They do come from some sort of fucked up past,
Yeah, I think that is true. A lot of, and that's what makes us so tight. We're all searching for something. We're all searching for a family. It's a lot like people joining a gang. You're just looking for validation, for brotherhood, for a sense of community. And a lot of Marines that you meet come from the same type of background I did. And in a normal situation, most of the guys that I consider my brothers, if we were to meet on the street without being in the military, we probably would never be friends. Had nothing in common from all different walks of life. But the fact that we were all in the Marine Corps and all went through the same bullshit together and the same, struggles together, that makes you super tight. And now those guys are like my family, way more than anybody ever grew up with back home. You know what I mean?
I think that's what's missing in life. I think the tribalism, I think the camaraderie, I think the brotherhood, and I think that's why a lot of men struggle. I think that's why suicide is very high for men, because we feel lonely, we feel detached. And I can't speak for every man. There's so many factors that come into suicide, but when you feel like a loner and you feel what's the point of existing, or you're constantly searching, it's a difficult road. It's good. It is good to search, like you say, you were kickboxing, boxing, motocross. You were a little daredevil where you just wanted to search, and you're probably getting your fry from adrenaline, But I just think it's so important to have good people around you. But it's difficult now in this day and age to find good people, to find solid people who don't have anything other than an agenda to fuck you over.
Yeah, it's difficult, man, and it's really hard for, I hate to say the word civilians, but it's hard, man. You don't know who you can trust. And like, at least in the Marine Corps, we were all eating the same shit sandwich together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so you just grow a bond that you can't match anywhere else. And for most of us, first time being away from home, so you just grow close. And when you're on those posts late at night in freaking Afghanistan or Iraq, and you're 6-hour shifts, and you're standing there with somebody for that long, you tell your whole life stories, you know what I mean? And it's like after a month, you know everything about everybody that you're with.
Like therapy sessions.
Yeah, everything.
What about your dad? Did you ever know him? Did they ever reach out? Did you ever reach out?
Yeah, so my dad, so my mom and dad were never married. They were, hooked up as teenagers. My dad was super wild. So they were never together. And then he struggled with alcohol and addiction for years. Went away, and I didn't hear from him until I was, I want to say 10 or 11 years old for the first time. That's when he actually got clean and was going through his STEP program. And part of that program is making amends with people that you've hurt in the past. And he told his wife at the time, like, hey, I've got a son out there. And she was like, what? Well, we're going to find him, So I owe a lot to my stepmom for really stepping up and doing that. And then anyway, they reached out. They found me down in Mississippi. They were living up in Memphis. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. They reached out, found me, sent me a envelope in the mail, and it had some pictures of him and a little letter from him. And I seen those pictures, like, holy shit, this dude looks just like me. Like, I got it. Because my mom told me that my dad was dead. She told me years ago that he died in a motorcycle wreck. Because the guy that she knew, she could never imagine him being like a normal guy or being a dad. So,
Try to protect you.
yeah, try to protect me, but also just, didn't want me to try to worry about her to depend on. And my grandfather filled that role though, hugely. You know, he's my best friend, my role model. But yeah, once my dad and I met, we had a great relationship, and we still do today. I mean, it's not super tight. We're not texting each other every day, but we have a good relationship. We've, bygones are bygones. I grew up, I survived, I made it. So there's no negative will towards him whatsoever.
But your dad's clearly a fighter as well. You know, for people to battle from addiction and overcome that, I believe it's one of the greatest strengths any human can do on this planet is come over addiction, you know. So it shows you where the fighting mentality comes from.
Yeah. He's been clean and sober now for 30 something years. I mean, it really changed his life. And like I said, we've been in touch. We still talk, and I usually go see him at least once a year. But, it kind of in his mind, I think he still has a lot of guilt. But he told me one time a couple of years ago, he's like, look, I don't know what to say to you. He's like, in my mind, you've accomplished more than I've ever accomplished. He's like, I don't have much advice for you. He's like, so if you need anything, I'm always here. He's like, but I don't really know what to say to you, Mm-hmm. And I respected that. And now it's just important for, now he's getting older, I'm getting older, I've got a family, it's trying to do what I can to make sure that he knows my kids and my kids know him. Mm-hmm. And,
that's all you can ask for.
Right.
Like, people do change, people make mistakes, but people also become better, no matter how hard that is. And we can also hold, like, envy. We can also hold a lot of hate for people, especially family members. But we don't really know people's struggles, especially our mums and dads and grandparents. A lot of them have struggled through the years. Imagine growing up in the early 1900s or through the war times and all the trauma. And I just think a lot of parents, we are a reflection of our parents sometimes, and I think sometimes we don't really know their story because the old school parents don't really open up. They're tough bastards. They're very tough. They're very guarded. I think it's now everybody talks about feelings and emotions now, and it's easy to speak out and stuff. But I think back in the day, I think these old school parents were very ruthless, and it's all they knew. I believe anyway.
Yeah, my dad, he came from Brooklyn. His father was a murder-suicide. His dad killed his mom, killed himself at a young age. So he was 8 or 9 years old, and he didn't watch it happen, but he walked out of the store and seen him in a parking lot. So, I mean, a lot of trauma himself, and he never really recovered from that at a young age. And he had 2 brothers and a sister, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. They had to split the kids up. So some went to live with an aunt, some went to live with grandma, different parts of the country. And so since that, he's never really had a good sense of family. But he's, like I said, he's doing great now. He's been married for almost 40 years, same woman. She's great stepmom. And he's got 2 daughters. So I've got 2 other sisters with him. And I talk to them also. So
yeah, good. Because I think that 70-80% of addiction comes from childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. So it's understandable how you go down that path. You want to block out the pain.
Yeah.
You want to forget, and that's the difficult thing, especially if he's seen what he's seen. And then not feeling like a father as well, because that would have hurt him more than anything, because he's seen what it was like not having a dad,
Yeah.
But, so the Marines, was that your first choice? How did you end up falling into that?
Actually, no. So I tried my shot at college because that's what you're supposed to do. You know.
American dream.
Yeah. So I went to college. Walked on for baseball scholarship. Walked on to a community college. Didn't make the grades. Didn't have a clue how to study or go to school or be a student whatsoever. That didn't last long. And then from that, the next step for somebody where I live is, well, now what? Well, college didn't work. You can work construction. So I tried construction for a while. Of course, didn't like that. Next thing, right, what's now? Well, you can be a cop. So I started working for a sheriff's department as a correction officer. Hated that. And I was like, well, what do I got to do, man? What am I gonna do? So 9/11 had just happened. And that's when I was like, all right, this is it. I'm 20. I don't want to get stuck here. If I'm going to try something and get out of town and make something of my life, I need to do it now. So I did. And I joined the Marines. First, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I was training for that pretty hard. But the fear of the unknown stopped me from joining because I didn't want to risk something happening at SEAL school and me not completing it and then being stuck in the Navy as a sailor on a ship, painting a ship or something, you know. Because there's two different sides to the U.S. Navy. You got the Navy SEALs and you got the U.S. Navy. And it's a different world.
What's the difference?
It's just, you know, there's different mindset, different world, different type of people, different, it's all considered U.S. Navy, but just the SEAL teams have a whole different culture.
Mentality.
The mentality.
The winners, the kind of fighters, the never break, never die mentality.
Yeah. Tight-knit group, it's just a lot better, a lot different culture than the U.S. Navy overall. So that was my big fear. So I joined the Marines because in the Marines, if something happened, you know, I could still be, if I didn't make like something like Marine reconnaissance, I could still be a sniper. I could still be infantry. I could still go to combat, still kick indoors, you know, do that shit. So I joined the Marines.
What was the training like?
Boot camp, you know, it's a pain in the ass. It's frustrating, but it's not hard.
6 weeks, 12 weeks?
It's 13 weeks. So I mean, it's long. It's the longest of the services, boot camps, training, basic training. It's definitely the most difficult out of the U.S. forces boot camps because, you know, the Marine Corps is a smaller force. It's the smallest force that we have, but they also, because of that, can afford to be, they can afford to be more, what's the word? Have a higher standard. You know, so they can afford to have a higher standard because they're smaller. So with that, you get, on average, you get a higher quality Marine soldier than you would in, say, big Army. So 13 weeks of training. I mean, I guess it was tough, but it was just frustrating. They just fuck with you all the time, and you know, you just get tired of being there.
Did you ever feel like quitting? Or did you not have it in you to quit because you had nothing to go back to?
There was no way I was quitting. First off, yeah, nothing to go back to. Secondly, I just don't have it in me to quit. So I never thought about that, not in boot camp. Finished boot camp and went to infantry. So I was infantry right off the bat because I wanted to go in Iraq. Iraq was kicking off. I wanted to go as quick as I could and fight. Became a machine gunner at first, and I was a machine gunner, basically riding in turrets, and doing foot patrols. My first deployment to Iraq, that's what I was doing. And then that's what opened my eyes up to the snipers, because when we were in Iraq, the sniper teams from our battalion were living in the same patrol base that we were living in. And that's the first time that I got to see those guys sneaking out in the middle of the night, small teams coming back in, you know, all their crazy gear. They all look like grown ass men, you know, same age as me, but they just look, you know, just look different. And I was like, man, I want to fucking do what they're doing. So, started talking to the guys, and they're like, yeah, as soon as we get back, we have a tryout. You know, every year, after every deployment, we have, they call it an NDOC. It's usually like 2 weeks. and you can try out to be in the platoon. And it's a straight kick in the nuts. 2 weeks of just fucking with you. I mean, very little sleep, games, patrolling at night, land nav at night, evaluations all day, testing infantry knowledge, running like crazy. I mean, it's nuts. Out of our NDOC, we had 26 people show up. We finished with 7 that didn't quit, and they kept 6 of us.
So less than 20%, basically.
Yeah, pretty tough.
Did you know that you were going to make it, though? Was there any kind of doubt in your mind going through that training?
No, I knew I was going to make it. I knew that anything I've ever done, I knew that it was on me. Mm-hmm. Like, unless there's some kind of factor that I fail, if I fail an evaluation for some reason, then yeah. But the notion for me to quit has never been there for anything. It's just, I've never had that issue.
How old were some of the boys going out at night?
All under 25. I mean,
that's scary though, isn't it?
Yeah, you're talking, these guys are 18 to 23 max, and you're going out in a 4-man team in a combat zone in a populated city, leaving your patrol base at 2 a.m, trying to sneak through the streets to get into a building and get eyes up when the sun comes up to start observing. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
What's the adrenaline like, especially starting off, not knowing the unknown?
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, man. So, but I'll get back to, so past the NDOC, became part of the sniper platoon. Each infantry battalion in the Marine Corps has a sniper platoon. That sniper platoon traditionally is made up of 4 sniper teams, 4 4-man teams. Those 4 4-man teams are in direct support of the battalion. So a battalion has 4 companies. So each company is a couple hundred Marines, right? When you deploy, usually a company has its own area of operation. So like Charlie Company will have this area. Bravo will have this area. Alpha will have this area. How we did it was we would attach a sniper team with each of those companies to support them with their operations. And some of the areas have a lot more activity or a lot more kinetic than others. So Bravo Company's AO may be super high active, so they may get 2 sniper teams attached because they've got shit going on all the time. And that's just kind of how you bounce it around. And then the sniper team leader for that team just coordinates directly with the company commander for that company and works on missions and tries to figure out ways to get out there and kill people.
How was it when you passed?
When I passed the NDOC, it was awesome. And then once you pass the NDOC, now you're just in a platoon. So now you're in the platoon, you start training. And the goal is to get ready to pass sniper school if you get a chance to go. So you get assigned to a team, you start training. And then for me, luckily, the next sniper school was coming up in a month. And we had 2 guys that had been in the platoon for at least, they did a whole deployment. It was their turn to go to school. One of the guys got a DUI. And they called me in the office like, Taylor, out of the new guys that we just passed, you're next up. We think you got a shot at passing. And I was like, oh, fuck. I don't know shit about being a sniper. So, anyway, went to sniper school and fucking by a miracle survived, passed, and then became a team leader. And then right after that, we deployed, and I was a team leader in combat, run a sniper team.
What was your first mission?
My first mission, we're in an area of Iraq called, the city was near a town called Dulab on the Euphrates River. And our first mission was to insert to this abandoned house on the river to observe across the river to a suspected cache site. There was a suspected cache site across the river where they were, the enemy was holding, had some weapons and ammunition and stuff like that. And basically a hole in the ground. And there had guards basically guarding it. And there were caches all up and down the Euphrates River. And we were always trying to locate them, dig them up, blow them up, that kind of stuff. So that was our first mission, was to get eyes and see if we could confirm or deny that there might be a cache over there. And how you do that is just by observing the baseline, observing the pattern of life in that area, seeing if anything's out of place. If you see one or two guys in the same area multiple times in one day, it's kind of suspicious. Maybe they're lookouts. Why do these guys keep coming down to the water, turning around, looking around for a minute, and then going back into the palm groves? So they kind of start making a pattern. And that's really what snipers do. That was our job. Our job is to observe the baseline, which is everything as it is in an area in its natural state, and then be able to identify disturbances in the baseline and then zone in on that and figure out what it is.
Like a bit of a spy?
Not really a spy, but you're just, you're sitting there with an optic and a scope from a hidden position watching the neighborhood.
How long for? Do you stay in
well,
the
we
same
had,
position?
Most of our missions were anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours.
Same spot?
Same spot.
What about when you need the toilet and stuff?
In that spot.
Shoot, is that?
Yeah.
It's a filthy fucking job as well.
Yeah, so if you got we would carry, our MRE sleeves, which your food goes in. We'd carry those with us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had to shit, you shit in the MRE sleeve, tape it up, throw it in your ruck. If you got to piss in the bottle, throw it in your ruck. That's just how we had to do it, man.
Why do you have to take it with you?
Because you don't want to leave. You want to leave the area like you were never there.
So no trace.
No trace.
Yeah.
Like it's untouched.
Could they have possibly, maybe a bit far-fetched, but for like DNA and stuff, did they have that sort of intelligence or
No, they
to
didn't,
see who it was? No?
They didn't, but I mean, here's the thing. Like if somebody's hiding in your backyard for 2 days, you're going to know they were there. So it was very rare that we were like, if you're on a mission for more than 2 days, 48 hours, somebody knows you're there. Sometimes we would get some good abandoned buildings or some sheep shacks or some little shit building that was off somewhere, and we could dig in there and hide and nobody see us. But for the most part, if you're in a populated area, they notice something's not right. They notice that window in Mohammed Sheikh, whoever's house, is never dark like that. Why is it dark?
Do they have lookouts as well, looking for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, they have lookouts. They have, and a lot of times they use kids. So they'll send kids out as goat herders, sheep herders, and they'll send them out and say, hey, go see what you can find. 90% of the time, if we ever got compromised, it was by kids. The kids would find us. Now they won't say anything, and we don't do anything to them. We just call it in like, hey, we've been actively compromised or passively compromised. Passive compromise means you're not really in any danger, but somebody knows you're there. Active compromise means we need to get out of here. So most of the times the kids would find us or something, they'd pop in the window or say, oh, hey, they take off and like, fuck, just got here. Fuck.
How is that when you get compromised? Is that like is that bad for you? Is that a bad look for you? Is like you haven't done your job right? How's that?
It can be. I mean, it's on a grand scheme, no, but personally it is, because you want to be not seen, and you want to be able to say you were successful. But the reality is, it's very difficult to hide 4 grown men in your gear in an area.
What are you wearing? What do you wear?
So we wear, our uniform, and we wear all of our body armor, our ruck with at least 6 to 8 liters of water per person, extra ammo, extra batteries for the radios that we're carrying. So I'll tell you our team loadout. So 4-man sniper team. You've got your point man. Your point man is carrying most of your he might carry some extra optics, but his job is to navigate you to your insert point and extract you out safely. That's his job, is to navigate you, lead the patrol, lead the team. And you got your team leader. He's usually right behind your point man. team leader is basically controlling everything. You got your assistant team leader, who's the backup, and then you got your RTO, your radio guy, the radio operator. So we carry, our RTO's got radios, and these are big radios. They're,
How heavy?
20 pounds.
Mm.
They're big. And then, so the radios plus the batteries that come with them. I can't remember how heavy the batteries are, but they're 3 to 5 pounds a piece, probably. Everybody's spreading load out extra batteries because it goes through batteries very quickly, like every 4 hours it goes through batteries. So you're running that for 2 days straight, 3 days straight. So everybody's carrying extra batteries. Everybody's got extra ammo. You got pyro, you got frag grenades, you've got your sniper rifle. Like I had a sniper rifle. The rest of my team would have either one guy would have a machine gun for extra firepower. One guy would have an M4 with a grenade launcher. Another guy would have just an M4. So we had a pretty decent arsenal in a 4-man team. We carried a lot of ammo and a lot of ass with us so that we could get ourselves out of a jam because it's just 4 guys.
How's a grenade launcher? Is it as cool as it sounds?
Well, they'll help you get out of a jam.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's one of the coolest things about one is it, if you're in a hairy situation, it helps you get out of it.
How many grenades can it have? 4?
Just one. Well, so towards my later deployments, we started getting the semi-automatic grenade launcher that you could fit 4 or 6 in it. And basically it was,
Like a shotgun?
Yeah, it looked like a shotgun, like a revolver. But they were heavy as hell. And we didn't carry those out with us much.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones we would carry is just a single load. You pull it out of your pouch, single load. But for the most part, that was one of our saving graces to get out of trouble. Because you fire that and then it causes a little bit of bang and you can fucking kind of get people's head down and bounce.
Scary though, I'd imagine that with the grenade bang. But it's funny because when you grow up as a kid, I used to always play with tanks and soldiers. But it is glamorous to think of doing that shit. I think it's every boy kind of wants to be firing fucking rocket launchers and grenades.
Yeah, I mean, I can't lie, it's fun, and it was a good time. I loved it over there. I loved doing what I was doing because I was trained to do it and we were ready to do it. Now that was the reasons we were there beside the point. Doing what the U.S. government told us to do. And that's all.
Hindsight's always a great thing, Like I say, I've no problems with any sort of soldiers or anybody that's fought in any combat because I interviewed a man, Peter McAleese. Peter was SAS. I interviewed him in an old folks' home, and he got offered £1 million to go and kill Pablo Escobar, but his helicopter crashed. And you know how a lot of soldiers are broken and it's heartbreaking, but he was just fucking ruthless. I asked him the questions, how was it killing people? He says, I fucking loved it. It was my job. I done what I done and I wouldn't change it. Like, I love that sort of, like I say, everything changes through time. You obviously maybe start to ask questions later on in life why these certain places are governments or corruption. You don't see it at that time. You feel as if you're doing your service, you're fighting for your country. Like I say, it's an honourable thing, It's okay for people to come out and start maybe pointing fingers maybe 20, 30 years later, but nobody knows back then. My grandparents fought in the World Wars 1 and 2 and I fucking love to hear their war stories, but it's just, at that time, was that just, would you have died and killed for your country instantly? Was it even nothing questioned?
Not a question. Not a question. And that's just the thing with patriots. Your government asks you to do something, and go do it. I mean, that's just what we did. We weren't fighting for politics or politicians. We were fighting for each other. So that's I think a thing that people don't realize is that when you go over with a fighting force, you're fighting for the guy right and left, and that's it, and yourself. You're not politics, ideals, all that shit is not even nowhere in our forefront whatsoever.
But especially then with 9/11, I would imagine that would have been one of the biggest recruitments of all time. I imagine
Oh,
maybe
it's
World
boom.
War One and World War Two would have been massive,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think 9/11, I think majority of Americans were willing to sign up and die for
Yeah,
their country.
recruiting was booming. I mean, and that's what I literally went into the recruiting office saying I want to go to combat. And what's the quickest I can go? They're like 30 days. I'm like, let's do it. And then yeah, so I ended up doing, like I said, we talked about, I did 5 deployments, 4 Iraq, 1 Afghanistan. And of course, through the years, through my deployments, the battlefield started changing. The optics started changing. The world started changing. And it was different every deployment. How we operated, what we received, how kinetic it was. But our first couple of deployments were very kinetic. We were very busy. In my battalion, I was with Battalion 1-2, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, and I was with 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines. We took a few casualties, took a lot of casualties, which is just people injured, like out of the battle, like 160 something, I think. But actual KIAs, the numbers weren't that high. But still, when any Marine or member of your group passes, it's a huge, huge impact on everybody, because you realize it could have been you.
Does it make you question things more? Or does it fuel you more?
Yeah.
To just go
A little bit
straight
of
back
both.
in?
A little bit of both. I mean, I don't care who you are. I guarantee you that if you got a week or 2 left on a deployment, you're really hesitant about jumping in that vehicle for patrol. I remember we used to always like, hey, 2 weeks left. I'm like, God, how about we just stop patrols? But yeah, it was crazy. And the another thing I always talk about is how the enemy was that we were facing in Iraq versus Afghanistan. Totally different. In Iraq, they at one point they had a country, they had a civilized country, they had infrastructure, they had military. So a lot of those guys were pretty highly trained. And you didn't know who you were fighting. They weren't stupid. They weren't just going to pop out with a gun and start shooting at you where you can see them, and they didn't really want to die for a cause. They weren't really looking for that. They were just trying to fight. They were fighting because we were there. Totally different from Afghanistan, to where they don't value life at all.
More kamikaze stuff?
I wouldn't say more kamikaze, but more brazen. Like, they're coming to attack you and they don't care if they die. They expect it, and that's a psychological advantage for them sometimes. But the thing is, we're just so superior. So, there's not, they just weren't successful much.
More well trained and organised. What was it like coming under fire for the first time?
I'll tell you the first time I came under fire, man, we were on just a regular vehicle patrol. I was a machine gunner. First time in Iraq. I was riding in the turret, half asleep. It's like cold. It's in the middle of the winter. I'm bouncing around in this truck. And then all of a sudden they're like, you start hearing, and they're like, hey, we got a fob under attack right across the bridge. And I'm like, trying to wake up. They're like, load your machine gun. Couldn't even load the gun. My brain couldn't even function. And we're flying across these roads and bouncing. And every time we hit a bump, my ammo would go flying up in the air. It was such a struggle. I was so surprised at how hard it was to even load my machine gun under stress like that. Because you can simulate those things in training, but you're never going to be able to simulate the adrenaline on top of the moment. And you're trying to function. It's hard to simulate that. You can't really simulate it. So that's when I really noticed that I need to start focusing on like drilling stress, like how to do things under stress, because I couldn't hardly get my gun loaded. And it was until we crossed the bridge and the firefight was almost done, my gun wasn't even ready to go up. I finally got my gun up, and I was like, Like, thank God we dodged that one, you know. But that's just little things that you don't think about. A lot of people don't admit that kind of stuff either. But I don't care to admit that.
But your adrenaline can get you killed
Your
sometimes.
adrenaline can really take over sometimes, you know, and that fight or flight, or and you just have to learn how to harness that, and that just comes with training and time.
Yeah.
You know, so that was one of our biggest, my first one ever. That woke me up to always being ready, you know, and not just because, you know, if you're doing the same patrols every day for months and you're not seeing anything, you're not hearing anything, and all of a sudden a firefight breaks out in the middle of the night and you're half asleep, riding, just going through the motions, you know. So it just makes you stay vigilant.
Yeah. What about female snipers? I've never came across a female sniper. Does that even exist?
Not in the U.S.
Because I said, listen, be who you want to be in life. And I got a bit of shit for it. But when Trump was running for presidency, or I think he was on stage and somebody had sniped him and cut his ear, there was a couple of female people, like bodyguards, and they were struggling to see what you were talking about then. And you're a man who's obviously going through it, but they were struggling to get their gun out. They were struggling to load their gun. It looked as if they'd panicked. But I'd imagine it works for everyone. But I feel as if with more, but again, that could have been their first time as well. If that was your first time under fire,
Oh, 100% it was
fear,
their first time.
you know. But it just didn't look right for people to be guarding the president and shiting themselves.
Yeah, definitely. They were definitely out of their element. They shouldn't have been there in that position anyway.
Because they probably never thought anything would happen.
No, of course. You're in rural Ohio, rural Pennsylvania. Everybody there's a Trump supporter, you think. You know, everybody had their guard down that day. It was a disaster from start. I had friends that were there working for other agencies that called me immediately when it happened. Like, bro, let me tell you what just happened, you know. And one of my friends was there, and he was like, as soon as I pulled up, because he was with another agency, and he was off duty, but he wore his gear just so he could get free parking, you know, just go and hang out. And he's like, yeah, man, when I got there and I pulled up, I seen the security, and I was like, this is not good. He's like, I could just see, like, they had like a casualty collection point, like right out in the middle of the sun, like 800 meters away from everything. It's like, you know, he's like, it was just nuts. They had fire truck like parked way over here that, you know, it had, all the buildings were unsecure, you could tell. And he was like, I could tell it was like a very poorly planned event. And then when all hell broke loose, that's what happens, right?
Why would they be so lazy though? Could that have been a setup to possibly kill Donald Trump, or is there a lot more to it? Because how does somebody climb on a roof, get a set of ladders, climb on a roof with a sniper? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I still question it. I don't really know, but see, when you walk into certain places, do you look for targets still? Do you look at windows? Do you assess everything
of
still?
Course. Yeah, of course. And that's what, you know, but a couple more things on the Trump thing and I'll stop talking about it. But because as soon as that happened, of course, me being the president of the Marine Sniper Association and being a sniper, people started calling me, wanting to do quick little interviews or podcast blurbs, you know, hey, tell me what you thought, you know. But yeah, I don't personally think it was a setup or a plan. I think it's just you know, they had the guard down, they were complacent, and failed the president that day. That's it. There's really nothing else to say about it. They just failed the president all around. The local law enforcement didn't do their job. Secret Service didn't do their job. The buildings were supposed to have people on the roofs, but guess what? It's 90 degrees in the middle of summer on a metal roof. What do you think those local cops said? I ain't climbing up there. Fuck that. We'll stand out here at the bottom of the door and make sure nobody comes in. You know, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, and then the guy just, you know, he's just walking around with a backpack and binos and
That's crazy.
rangefinder and climb up on the roof and shit. He didn't have a ladder. He didn't have a ladder, but he shimmied up the drainage pipe. There's like a drain pipe, and he just climbed up it.
Does this stuff happen more frequently where people do that, but because snipers do they take them out in silence and it never gets spoke about? Does that happen also with these sort of big events where stuff like this actually happens, but nobody hears about it because they've saved the president basically?
No, not really.
Nah.
I mean, anytime anybody in law enforcement has to fire a shot, you're going to hear about it. Because there's going to be investigations. There's going to be people are on leave. It's a big deal.
Media would get wind of it.
Yeah, you'd know. But no, it's very rare. And I know some of the Secret Service sniper guys, and the teams that were there did their job best they could. They eliminated the threat.
Just going right off topic here, but see the JFK killing, see being a sniper, like where do you think that bullet came from? Because there's so much conspiracies and speculation at actually who done it. Like, have you seen it where you've seen a bullet, and where does it come from? Do you know? Being somebody who's trained.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I haven't really looked into it that much.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's just the president stuff because we were on that, but I've seen it
Yeah.
and people say there was somebody that was the person next to them or the bodyguard at the front. It just doesn't make sense. I don't understand it because I'm not a sniper, but just in case a certain bullet or a certain angle, you'd think, well, there's maybe something behind them.
Yeah, a lot of that, I mean, a lot of that stuff, I don't know. But the U.S. government, is so deep that there are a lot of things that they do that we'll never know because they don't have to tell us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just part of it. I'm not a conspiracy guy, and I could really care less. I just try to support who's ever the president, and I support common sense and being a good person. Other than that, I don't really give a fuck.
I think that's the best thing to do. Like, we're living in a day and age where everything is thrown in your face. Everything's pure divide. You go on social media, you go on certain apps, and it can make you see the world a different place, and
Yeah.
it's just intriguing how much pull the government has, how much the world is controlled.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can look at people being oblivious. See when you're on tour, are you ever envious of the people who just work and don't realise what goes on a few miles across the water? Were you ever envious, or were you just happy of doing what you were doing?
Yeah, I think, really once, I wouldn't say 9/11 was a turning point for me, but I really think since once 9/11 happened, something's flipped to me to where I just wanted to be that guy. Like, that phrase from the Bible, like, who shall we send? Send me, I felt like that was me. I just wanted to, I guess, protect people that couldn't protect themselves, or protect weak. I don't know. I just wanted to put myself out there,
Help people.
and if we're going to get attacked, if we're going to fight and we have to fight, let me go fight. I want to go do it. And I think that's just how a lot of the mindset was with us during that, the guys that joined during that time.
What was it like shooting someone for the first time?
Well, I can tell you my first kill. That same town I was telling you about, Dulab. I'll tell you the whole story. So I was running a sniper team, and we had split our sniper teams up. We had two teams. And actually what had happened was during this time, during the Iraqi war, when we were there, OIF, the op tempo was high. The deployment cycle was high. So units were going all the time. 6 months back, 6 months here, 6 months back. Rotating out units. And the area of operation was huge that we had in Iraq that we were covering. So it didn't matter if you were a tank unit, if you were a AAVs, which is assault vehicles, amphibious assault vehicle unit. You were going over there and taking an AO and being infantry. That's just, they couldn't afford you to do anything else. They needed you on the ground patrolling, acting as professional infantry. So what that did, though, is it left some capability gaps in some of those AOs because some of those units didn't have the same capabilities that the infantry units had. So one in particular, there's an AAV unit, amphibious assault vehicle unit. These are the trucks that you see that can launch out of the back of ships, go in the water, haul troops, and then go onto the beach and drive. That's called AAVs, we call them. So this AAV unit had its own AO in this area, Dulab, and they were running all the operations in that AO. They didn't have any sniper capabilities, any long-range precision capabilities, any reconnaissance capabilities, any surveillance capabilities. And they were getting harassed a lot with gunfire from across the river where they were at. And there was nothing they could do about it. So basically their commander, the company commander for them, reached out to the division that controls all the movement in the area. It was like, hey, we need sniper support. Is there a unit that can send us some sniper teams or a sniper team to help us neutralize this threat? Because we keep getting harassed from across the river. We want somebody to take these guys out. So they tasked my team with it. We drove out to their AO. So this is Marines that I don't know. We don't know them whatsoever. I've never worked with AAVs before. So my team is a 4-man team. We decided, oh, this is our chance. We're gonna go out there like we're fucking special forces. We're just gonna fucking roll in like cool guys. So we took all of our rank off, took our name tapes off. Like I'm out from the command now. I'm on my own. And my buddy that was my ATL, he's a Mexican guy. He grew a beard during this time. And so we get there, and the company gunny for the AAV unit's like, hey, got you the snipers? We're like, yeah. He's like, who's this, your interpreter? I was like, no, it's my ATL. He's like, oh, he's got a beard. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. And Marines are all about regulations and uniforms and grooming standards. But the AAV guys, they didn't know any difference. They thought we were like, some kind of special forces unit coming in. So we were like milking it, having fun. And so I linked up with the company commander there, and he was telling me what was going on. And I said, all right, I think we can work it out. I was like, I tell you, if you really want to make this work, keep all of your operations out of this area of town for 2 days. Don't send any patrols in there. Don't send anybody in. Let us go set up in a position to overwatch that area and get eyes on the area across the river that they're harassing you from. And somebody's going to mess up. They're going to slip up. They're going to pop out with something. We're going to see them. They're going to get comfortable. He's like, all right, done. So they kept all their operations, all their movement out of this area, this village, for 3 days. And on the third day, that night, we inserted into a mountain, on a mountain range on the backside of it, and came up, made movement, and took 2 positions. One position on top of a ridge overlooking the village, one position down on the river looking across the river. So then we'd have a team that was close to the river that could engage if they seen something, and we had my team up on a hill that could kind of overwatch everything and be their support. We're there for 2 days. The end of the second day, sun's about to start going down, and that's a lot of the time when they start doing any kind of attacks or movement. They do it either at dusk or at dawn. So it was about to be dawn, dusk, and then my guy down the river is like, hey, JT, I got a guy. He just popped out of the mangrove or the palm grove. He's got an AK. He's like, I'm watching him. All right. So I get up there, I crawl up, get on my sniper rifle. ATL comes up beside me. He gets on the scope. He's looking, he's observing. He gets the range for me. He's like, all right, this guy's at 900 yards. I'm like, fuck. All right. Well, I put the dope on anyway, put the data on. And then my buddy down the river's like, we're going to watch him walk. I'm going to watch him walk. If he gets out of distance, we're going to let him go. But if we see him do something, we're going to engage. I was like, all right. So before you know it, he met up with another guy on the riverbank. They did like a deal. You could tell it was like a weapons deal, a trade. He showed him the weapon clearly. He gave him a bag. It looked like maybe probably money or something. I'm not sure. But they were doing some kind of trade for weapons and ammo. And as soon as we identified that, for us, that's positive ID of hostile act, hostile intent, positive ID of a weapon, and we can engage. So we engaged. on Tia 2. My guy on the river and me, we counted down 5, 4, 3, 2. We both shot. So he shot the guy on the left. I shot the guy on the right. His guy went down immediately. My guy went down immediately. We're like, oh shit, you hit him. I'm like, oh fuck, I actually hit him. And then so hit the guy. He crawled for a little bit. Tried to pop up again. I hit him again in the back. And then he was kind of yelling for help. So some of the people from the village were coming out, like waving a flag, like, you know, hey, let us grab him. And they finally came. A vehicle came. They scooped him up and got out of there. But they took him straight to the hospital and just dumped him out. And he was dead. So both of those guys died that day. But that was my first ever engagement, actually shooting someone. It was from 926 yards. And I hit him first try. Just nuts.
And what's that feeling when you hit someone for the first time?
You know, I hate to say that it felt great, but it felt great. I mean, does it make me fucked up? Maybe. Am I fucked up?
Yeah, of course.
People say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it felt great. It felt great for many reasons. I know what that weapon is going to do. That weapon is going to be used against us. You know, that money is going to be used to keep funding them, to keep getting other weapons, to keep getting IED materials. And anything that we can do at that point when we're there, like I said, this is what we're doing at the time. We're there for a reason, and that's what we're doing. Anything we can do to protect Marines or civilians' lives at that time, we're doing it. And if it meant kill somebody, absolutely. I would take the same shot 100 out of 100 times and not feel any remorse whatsoever.
Tell me this, does it change you? Or did you still feel the same?
No. I mean, here's the thing. Anybody losing their life is not to be celebrated, right? A loss of life is not celebrated. But under the circumstances, we can agree that sometimes it's warranted. Like people get the death penalty, you know, or people. For me, the only thing that's different about shooting, you know, a target in a person is that you really get that more of a personal connection when you fire. You know, shooting a target, it's like you're going through the motions. When I fire at a person, everything about that guy's life that I don't know about goes through my head. Kids, wife, family, job. What did he do? Why is he doing what he's doing? Is he just doing this because he's doing this because he's forced to do it? If I met him, you know, in the village and he was working in a shop, would be laughing and shooting the shit, you know? Is this guy just doing what he has to do to survive? Is he being forced to do this and has no other choice? Or is he just a fucking terrorist that wants to kill Americans and kill innocent people, you know? All those go through your mind in a split second before you take that shot.
That must be a mind fuck though, to go down that hole, to thinking, would I have a beer with him? Would we have a laugh? You know,
Yeah.
I would have to stay in the mindset, he's trying to kill me. I wouldn't want to go down that other route and try and figure it all
now,
out.
none of those affect the fact that I'm pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
It's just that's what I couldn't help, but those images flashed through my mind every time.
Do you think that's just a human kind of connection? Because we are all human, you know, different borders, different
Right.
governments make us go against each other, different religions, different faiths, or whatever it is.
Right.
Even soccer teams, baseball teams. I'm saying soccer teams, fuck's sake. I'm interviewing an American. I've went full American myself, but you know what I mean? Everything is kind of that easy to divide, you know, but for me, I would probably I wouldn't want to overthink that, you know, but again, I just think it's maybe a natural feeling to think, I wonder if he has kids, I wonder what he was doing. But on the other hand, you would think, well, fuck it, I'm here to do a job. That's why I love Peter McAleese. I love that bad kind of, I was there to kill. You gave me a job, you gave me a mission, I done it to the best of my ability. no
Yeah.
questions asked.
Right.
People speaking about mental health and stuff, and he was saying, I don't give a fuck. I done what I done. I wouldn't change it. And I think having that sort of strong mindset as well. I think when a lot of people who I've interviewed a lot of veterans, you know, and I think they struggle because they then question everything they've done. They've questioned the people that they've killed. They question that, and I think that can really tear away at you, you know, and you start feeling guilty.
Yeah. You know, I don't, like I say, when I say I thought about these things, you know, some of the more human aspects come after, you know, but I don't, I mean, that's just me, man. When I was pulling that trigger, all those things flashed in my mind, but it didn't matter.
What was that adrenaline feel like?
It's a pretty crazy adrenaline rush and dump because,
Do you get a dump after it?
yeah, because you want to make everything in you is trying to make sure that you hit this person. You don't want to miss. You know what I mean? First off, you miss, they're gone, and now they're not going to be as quick to make a mistake like that again. So that might be your only shot. And then back then, our mindset was so being a sniper in your battalion, in your AO, if you're firing at somebody and you miss, word gets around that you missed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you shoot somebody that didn't die, oh, fucking Team 1's out there injuring people. And, you know, now we got to, because if you know, from our law, you know, the way we work with the U.S. is if we have to render aid. So if you shoot someone and you injure them and they're not dead, you have to render aid. So we have to go out there, we have to patch them up, render aid, bring them in, and all these things. So that's another thing. It's like
So if you don't kill him, the enemy, you have to save him?
yeah, that we have to, yeah.
Yeah, that's strange behaviour. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So do you feel the pressure then if a sniper goes out and misses, because then it potentially puts his other brothers kind of...
Well, what it does is it affects confidence from leadership. So trust and confidence from leadership starts going away a little bit, and they might not want you guys. They might not want to give you those cool Gucci missions to where you go, and you know they might not have the same trust and confidence in you if they're knowing that you're out there winning people and missing people and you know not doing your job, because when you fire, you're compromised. Now that position that you shot from is burned, and there's only so many spots, you know. So that's another thing you want to take advantage of. If you're firing a weapon in combat, you want to make sure that every round kills. Every round counts. You know, it's one shot, one kill. Fire for a purpose. You're firing to eliminate a deadly threat. Period.
Is there a celebration for your first kill? How does it work? Is it like
Yeah, of course. I mean,
high
we
five?
also, yeah, every kill,
Everyone?
every kill, you're high fiving and fucking smoking and joking about it. Yeah, every kill. You know?
Everyone? So
It's
not
like
just
if you're a
kid,
fucking football player and you score a touchdown. It's the same shit.
just a different level.
It's a different fucking level. Same shit, man. Like, you know, what am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. I'm not scared to say it. It is what it is. And anybody that thinks otherwise, they're lying or full of shit.
I interviewed Craig Harrison, who's became a good friend. He was a sniper. Craig struggles, mental health, but the amount of kills he had was over 80 or something, or 88. I know a lot of snipers, maybe a lot of people don't talk about it, this and that, but I think it's good to be an open book. But being in the war zone, he can't handle life here, where there's no chaos, when it's calm. He feels more at peace in the war zone, which is fucking crazy, but I guess people can't understand that if they've never lived it. Did you find that experience where it's hard to separate normal life to war life?
Different, but yeah. So for me, the biggest thing, I don't speak for everyone, but most of the guys that I've dealt with, it's just the dealing with the everyday life that you're not used to dealing with when you're in the military. You're kind of spoiled in the military. least in the American military, you're taken care of. You're told where to go, where to be there, where to wake up, what to do, what you're doing every day. You've got your meals. You're going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner every day. You don't have to worry about paying bills. You don't have to worry about, if you're a junior Marine, you're living on base. Everything's paid for. You got a meal ticket. You go to the chow hall, you eat. Your paycheck's coming in every 2 weeks. You don't have to worry about it, first and the 15th. And you're not dealing with all the normal things that regular everyday people are dealing with, like, your normal household bills, your running errands, your, being there with your spouse and your wife and going through issues and being there every day, waking up every day with her, going to bed every day, being around your kids, filling that father role or helping out at the house and taking them to school and making sure that who their teachers are and going to teach. You don't have to deal with that shit when you're deployed, right? And you get used to it. And when you come home, that stuff can be way more stressful. You were good at your job. Mm-hmm. You knew what you were doing. You were respected. You were, especially as a sniper and a team leader, I had a good reputation. I could do whatever I was. I wouldn't say a king, but I had a team, I had a group, I had guys that looked up to me. I could do it, I had a boss, but it's more of a friend, and then I knew exactly what to do. I knew what to say. I knew how to train. I knew how to teach people. And then when you get home and none of that shit matters. Did you do the laundry? Well, you're home now. Can you help me with laundry? Where you're home now, we need to, this needs to happen. This project needs to happen. You're here. Can you do it, please? Just those little things I think really get to guys when they come home, and it's just living that day-to-day life that guys aren't used to.
Did you struggle with normal life, especially being a bad fucking motherfucker to doing what you done? Did you struggle with the certain chores and certain, because you're a man who kills, you're a man who takes lives, you're a man who's a bad man doing the right thing for his country, but did you struggle to kind of separate the mad life, bit of structure, the leader, to actually doing the smallest of tasks?
Yeah, of course.
You're doing the biggest of tasks that anybody can ask for, anybody who fights for their country. That's the ultimate what you do, but for the smallest tasks, to be like a husband, a friend, a father, did you struggle with normal day-to-day tasks? Is that a big thing with majority of men who serve their country?
100%.
Is it?
100%. And that's one of the biggest factors I think that leads to the veteran suicide rate, is all those little things. You've got, and then on top of that, you throw in the culture that we develop while we're there. It's like a fraternity. So every night you're getting blackout drunk and getting up and running and PTing and doing your shit the next day, and you don't care. And every night and you get home and those habits don't leave you, and you start drinking, you start doing your shit, and then all these other aspects start hitting you. Now you're having relationship problems. On top of that, you're adding alcohol. On top of that, you've got injuries and pain. Now you're taking pills, so now you got alcohol and pills in you. Then you're dealing with your wife struggles, your day-to-day struggles, it's just a lot. And then it's like one of my counselors one time was describing it to like an egg, putting pressure on an egg. If you can hold an egg in your hand and squeeze it as hard as you can, and as long as it's upright, you're not going to break it. But you put one finger in there and you squeeze, it's going to crack. All right, so it's like you get pressure coming from different angles, and eventually you're going to crack. And that's how I describe it. You start putting all these things on. You got relationship, finances, alcohol, drugs, separation, anxiety. All those things stacked together are a recipe for disaster. One or two of them, you can deal with it. Once you get them all, somebody's in trouble. You got to start looking out for them.
Did you know, is it like living two separate lives then?
100%. It's like living two lives, because you can't talk about the same shit with your family that you can with your fellow teammates. You know, you can't, hey man, remember that time that suicide bomber blew himself up in that truck and then you picked his arm up and you were skipping with it, holding his hand, and threw it in the fire pit? That was fucking funny as hell, you know? Your wife don't think that's funny. You know, your buddies are like, oh, I remember that. I still remember his hand. You remember, you know, like, yeah,
It must watch.
your wife's coworkers at the insurance company don't really like that.
Yeah, that's not a good
company
party trick,
party.
is it? When you're sitting, everybody's round for dinner, and you're talking about throwing body parts in a pit.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at these people though, like not your family, but other people, and don't realise how good they actually have it, and they complain and moan about the slightest things, but they've never actually seen like that. That's basically in hell for anybody that's fighting in wars. It's a hell zone, you know. It's the worst of the worst, and you're seeing things that you should never see. But do you ever look at people? I know we spoke earlier about being envious, but do you ever look at people and think you don't realise how lucky you are for the life that you have, you know, compared to some of these people? Do you ever look at them that way?
You know, some, but for me, I chose. That's the thing about the U.S. military. It's an all voluntary force. I chose it. I chose that path. You know, I made the decision, the conscious decision to do it. So I didn't really look at it that way. If anything, the military is a crutch. You know, it's a crutch because it kind of leaves you behind a little bit. You come in the military at 18, 19 years old. Then you got a person. So say Joe military goes in 18. His friend goes in to college at 18. He's partying, going through his college life, getting his degree, whatever. You're partying, but you're doing your thing. You're serving your country. You're seeing shit. You're killing people. You're doing all these things. But what he's also doing is he's getting introduced to the social world as an adult that you're not. He's also going through the aspects of normal life that you're not. So paying bills, having friends and relationships, being around his family, these things. And all of a sudden you do your 4 years, you get out. And now here you are. They're already past you. Now you're playing catch up. Now you've got some other skills that they don't have, but you don't know you didn't get that basic time to socialize as a young adult, you know, as a young man. Like, so in my mind, it's like you almost take a break out of real life for 4 years. If you do 4 years, it's like you took a break from real life for 4 years, and now you're being released back into real life, and you got to figure it out. But guess what? Now you're not at home anymore. You're not a high school student. You got to have a paycheck. You got to pay bills. You're on your own. And I think that's some of it too.
It's like a world within a world. It's like if you're in that sort of, is it like a dream sometimes? Does it not feel like reality at times?
You never feel like you're a normal person when you're in, because you're not. You're not normal. You are you're a result of what's around you. You are part of the system. You're part of the machine of the Marine Corps or the Army. And you can't even be your real self or know who you are because you don't get an opportunity. You can't be an individual. It doesn't work, especially in the Marine Corps. You know, you have to be part of the group think. You have to be a part of the machine, you know, the big machine that's moving. So I think that's a lot of it too.
Does the killing get easier? Or is it all the same? Because your first one, you seem to have done it with ease anyway, but does it get just a straight job, just like anything?
Well, not only does it get easier, but it becomes easier to know when to fire and when not to fire. It becomes easier to make those calculations in your head to where going through the continuum, force continuum, positive ID, positive act, you know, hostile act, hostile intent. Has this guy got a weapon? Can I engage him? Should I engage him? You know, blah, blah, blah. As you've done it and you've gained that experience, you know when to shoot and when not to shoot. And for guys that haven't ever killed or haven't ever had to kill somebody or engage as a sniper, you're kind of hesitant at first. Like there was a few times where I was hesitant before that first kill, that I had people in my sights that just really wasn't sure, you know. And that split hesitation in a really serious situation can get everybody killed, right? So as you become more senior, that starts going away. You don't have that hesitation anymore. You can make that decision on the spot and fire. And that's why it's so important when you're leading a team and you've got younger guys to have at least a guy that's been to combat, so he can make those decisions, you know, and show the other guys, all right, now let's back table that. All right, I shot the guy. Why'd I shoot him? If you were on the gun, would you have shot him? I'm not sure. Well, why not? Because I couldn't really. Okay, and then you discuss it. You know, you can't hesitate. You know, you had positive idea of a weapon. You had hostile act, hostile intent. You met all the criteria. You know, engage. Those little things like that, with time, what you get better at.
See, when you're doing it, is there a lot of paperwork after it? Do you need to then report back to somebody, or do you just get full power and control of your team and your decision making?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, what we do is after a mission, especially if you engaged, you come back and do a debrief. We would debrief with the intel shop and just tell them what we did, what happened, where we're at, give them the grids, give them the location on the map, what the people look like, give descriptions of people, descriptions of vehicles. That's how you drive intel. That's how intel is created, right? So the snipers go out, your reconnaissance teams go out, they gather the information, they bring it back, they do a debrief with intel. Intel starts working up packages based off of that.
Was it always teams of 4, or did you ever go on a mission yourself?
Never went on mission by myself or with 2 people, because by the time OIF and OEF were kicking off, it was just too kinetic. If you went out in a 1 or 2 man team, you were just a sitting duck. If something happened, you just didn't have enough ass to get back. You know, you didn't have enough ass with you to protect yourself and to put up a fight. So 4 man team, you had just enough ass to sustain yourself in a shitty situation to call for backup or to get yourself out. And then when we went to Afghanistan, we switched to 6 man teams.
Why?
Just because our movements were further. We were moving further from friendly lines. And the enemy was just a little more dynamic. I mean, you didn't want to be caught out there as a small element, because you wouldn't make it back. Yeah.
Would they torture?
Don't know. I mean, of course they would, but of course we never had anybody killed and tortured. But yeah, they would love nothing more than that. They would love that.
Is there any kills that stick out for you that you think about?
There's no real kills that I have ever doubted. And I've always, used my best judgment every time. I'm never just going to engage somebody to engage. I'm just not that type of person, first off. But secondly, I always had guys watching me, right? And so I was the example. So as a team leader, when you're engaging a combatant, you have to make sure you're meeting those criteria, because you are training these guys, and what they do after you is a direct reflection of what you taught them. Now they're going to go and lead teams. They're going to do stuff, and you just don't want to build bad habits, right? So I always, and all my guys can tell you that 100%, that I didn't just go around shooting people. And a lot of times there's a lot of times I should have engaged that I didn't, for certain reasons. You just have to make those decisions.
Do you think a lot of people can lose their mind having that sort of power? Again, when I interviewed Peter Maculis, he spoke about someone who went rogue.
I seen it all.
He went rogue, and I think he joined an army in Africa and started fucking torturing people. Like he went off, he lost the plot, and he was in the same unit as Peter, but he just loved to kill. He became a mass murderer and started working. I forget the guy's name, but do you see people losing their shit completely? Because you're still saying you've got your eyes, everything's kind of fair. Do you know what I'm saying? Listen, we could finish this podcast and we could go fucking nuts, but you still have it together. It reminds me of Peter. Like, he still had his shit. He had the twinkle in his eye. He didn't look kind of frail, and he just owned his presence. He owned what he'd done, and that's what I think it's about. But do you see people just completely lose the plot?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen it. And you know, to be completely honest, those guys were already fucked up anyway.
Yeah, they already tightens up.
They were fucked up before they even joined the military, and then now that they're in, it's just heightens their fucked upness.
Yeah,
I mean, most everybody I know that was, I would say, a bad Marine or people that did shit like that, they were fucked up before they even came in. You know, that's just how it is. I mean, you're getting the disenfranchised youth, the bastard children of America that join the U.S. Marine Corps. When you sign up to be a Marine, you know it's going to suck. It's like joining the French Foreign Legion. You know you're going through hell. You know it ain't going to be easy. You know, you're not taking vehicles and riding everywhere. You're fucking humping and marching and fucking, they're going to put you through shit. And it's the same thing when you become a Marine, because guess what? You got all these other choices. You could join the Air Force, you could join the Army, you could join the Coast Guard, now you're Space Force. But you chose the Marine Corps knowing it's harder, right? So, just a bunch of fucked up dudes.
Sign me up, brother.
Yeah.
Fucking sign me up.
Yeah.
How many kills did you have? Can you answer that?
I can't really put a number on it, honestly, to tell you the truth. And that's really something that we never really, it's not taboo, I would say. It's just, I mean, of course, I was keeping track in my mind a little bit, you know, but there's no like official record of that don't exist. People think that exists, like, you know, confirmed kill, it gets logged in. You know, this guy's got 34 confirmed kills. Like that's not true, but you know, we'll say more than 10, less than 50. That's a number, you know.
Double figures is still
You know,
a lot.
and that's and it could be more. It could be, you know, because you get a lot of shit sometimes, and you don't always know if you killed someone or not. It's very rare that it's not like in movies. When you're engaging people in a firefight, you're not looking at each other. They're not standing there looking at you, pointing their gun. You're not standing there pointing your gun at them. You very rarely, if all see them, you see the dust and the muzzle flash from where they're shooting. And then you fire into that as accurate and as much as you can until that stops. And you're like, guess I got his ass, you know? But you don't know. Unless somebody can put their hand on the body, you don't know if you got a kill. One way that we did know, though, is that like a couple days later, you know, like because the enemy talked too. So we had our interpreters that would go out. We had sources out in towns, you know, and our interpreter would go out and go shopping for us and do shit. And he would, you know, hit his source and say, hey, there was a firefight over this farm over down there 2 days ago. Anybody die? Oh, yeah. Two guys died. And you come like, hey, y'all killed 2 guys 2 days ago. Yep, you got them, both of them. All right, sweet. Fuck yeah. You know, and then you see the funeral a couple days later. You see the funerals. You're like, all right, well, got those motherfuckers. Because they get their bodies quick. They don't, you know, that's one of the things. They don't, you can't, an infidel is not supposed to touch the body. Because if you touch the body, they can't, you know, they can't go. So even the locals, they're in on it. They grab them and get them out of there.
Do you become cold towards life? Does it change your whole persona of becoming numb towards feelings of that? Or do you still kind of in tune with how you feel?
I was always in tune. I was as compassionate as I possibly could be to the local civilians. I mean, they are not the enemy. and they are not even. These people don't care. Like you're talking about back in Jesus times. That's how they live. Like they don't have running water. They don't have electricity. They don't have phones. Some of them have phones, but they don't have TV. They don't know what the fuck's going on in the world. All they know is that, do I have enough water coming to my field to grow my crops? That's all I care about. Is my crops going to grow this year? That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. But that's the only thing that those assholes have to use to hold over them and to extort them with, is their fields and their crops. And that's why Afghanistan is such a haven for heroin production, poppy, and marijuana, because not only does it grow there easily and often, but these Taliban and these terrorist cells, they force these farmers to grow it. You know, they force them. They're like, you're going to grow us this, you're going to yield us this return, and if you don't yield us at least this much, we're going to take your daughter when we come back at the end of the season. And then they'll come back, didn't do it, give me that girl. We'll bring her back next year. You know, and what do you do? And that's and the locals. So, and that's another thing that I like to throw around. I like to bust this myth all the time about like Taliban. You know, you think you're fighting Taliban, and everybody you're shooting at you is Taliban. 90% of them are not Taliban. They're just They call them pimps. The locals call them pimps, which basically means a drug lord. They're thugs. They're local gang members that are extorting the people for drugs and money.
Billion people.
Yeah, period. That's all they are.
Can you kill them then?
Yeah, they're enemy. If they've got a weapon towards, yeah. That's the guys that are fighting.
I don't mind them getting killed. You know, them that are trafficking kids and bullying people to grow drugs, and they're the bad people. You know, they're the evil ones who are using these people. But it's just the media can portray a certain narrative. You know.
Yeah. Well, and the Taliban are involved in all that. Don't get me wrong, and they're helping fund that. And these are like, say you got the Hells Angels. That's the Taliban. And you got all these little support clubs. That's how these guys are. You know, you got this little support cell here, but they're not really connected with the Taliban. You know, they've probably never even seen anybody from the Taliban. They're just doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing or told to be doing. Extorting people for money, period. Mm-hmm. To have power. And then, so we would come in, you know, the U.S., you know, our military, we'd come in and be like, all right, hey, we're going to eradicate all these crops, all this marijuana, this poppy, all this shit. We're going to shut this shit down. And we're going to provide you with bags of wheat seed. And you grow this instead. And the farmers are like, fuck that. This wheat takes me 3 times as much water, 3 times as much land. I've got to grow 5 times as much of a crop to yield anything close to I get off of a small portion of a marijuana field. Like, no, I'm not doing that shit. And, you know, it's never going to stop.
So they were being offered help. So it's not a case of people going over there and stealing poppy fields and oil and gold and money. They were being offered help.
Yeah, oh yeah. We would come into these areas of operation. We would come in. We would offer. That was our goal, was to try to coerce the locals into not supporting the Taliban or supporting the terrorist cells, not supporting the drug trade, the drug production. Like, here's wheat, grow wheat instead. Or here's new generators or water pumps so that you can pump water from the river straight to your fields. You know, it's going to help you. And we're going to build a new well in your village so everybody can get water. And we're going to put up a new little market right down the street here. We bring our engineers in. We'll build like a quick little strip market with shops, put freaking light poles up and build them a little area. And sometimes it worked, and they really started really enjoying it. Like, all right, hey, this is what we could have if we do this. We got this nice little market now. But guess what? As soon as the Marines leave that area, they come right in and swoop all that stuff up.
Yeah.
and started extorting.
It's a fighting a lost cause then, isn't it?
It's fighting a lost cause. We would, say we would come in, we'd take an air operation, we'd clear out all the bad guys in our 6-month tour. And we'd expand like, I don't know, a few miles, whatever. The next unit would come in, they'd fall in, they'd backfill into where we were. And then their goal would be to push it out further, just to keep clearing, right? And we would set up patrol bases. And as we clear these areas out, we set up patrol bases, we turn over the old patrol bases that we built, turn them over to the Afghan forces to let them run. All right, hey, now you guys have footholds. Now you've got a patrol base. Now 2 miles out there, we've got another one. All right, now you've got another patrol base. But what would happen is by the time 1 or 2 Marine units came through and cleared this whole area, the Taliban, the bad guys, already came in and started backfilling. And now they've taken over this patrol base. And now they've taken over this patrol base. And guess what? Next unit comes in, they got to start here. And it's just, they're coming back through the same shit.
A revolving door.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with one of the longest kills? How did that come about?
Well, it's kind of a, I guess, right place, right time, lucky type thing, I guess, if you want to call it lucky. But we had this big operation in Afghanistan, and we were doing a joint operation with the Afghan army and the Afghan police. And our unit, basically this whole operation was to, just like I was talking about, eradicate marijuana and poppy fields in this region to the east of the town that we were in. That was known to, this whole area was known to have a lot of like drug activity in fields and production and terrorist activity. So we were gonna, our whole battalion, or not our whole battalion, but 2 companies, were staged to the west. And basically what we were doing is we were gonna push to the east. As we were doing that, the Afghan army, Afghan police were gonna push north to south. So they started north. They were pushing through, identifying, locating, and burning and eradicating poppy fields, marijuana fields, lighting them on fire. So they were doing that and questioning the people that were there, whatever. As they were doing that, my sniper team was inserted into a building at the far east so that we could observe this happening for a couple of days. So basically what we're doing is, once again, observing that pattern of life in the couple little villages that are there from a distance to see if we can notice anything changing as this operation is progressing. And of course you start noticing things changing. You start seeing motorcycles with 3 or 4 guys on it, all in black, coming in from the south and the backside of the villages. And of course we got like our ISR and our drone, the planes are up there and everybody's, looking and they're saying, yeah, we got guys coming in from the east. We got guys coming in from here. We got guys. All right. So they're getting ready to fight. And as they would come in, they start setting up their little positions, waiting for the Afghan army and police to get within range that they could start firing at them. My sniper team was already in place 2,000 yards away, observing all this going down. And they have no clue we're there. So we start seeing, first I start seeing a group of guys, 5 or 6 guys gathering behind this old abandoned wall. And it's near a berm and a canal, like a little man-made canal. And they were using that wall and that berm as like cover. And they were hanging out there. It was kind of suspicious, like these guys are up something for sure. And one thing about the guys in that area, as they would conduct their operations, or they would fight, they would put on all black. That was like their uniform for fighting. They'd wear like all black schmuck and stuff. And they would carry it with them. They'd be dressed in regular clothes, like every other Afghan, and they'd have it tucked or whatever. And when they go to fight, they drape that thing on. It's like their battle robe. They fight. They take it off, tuck it, and haul ass. So I seen them all in black. I was like, all right, these guys are getting ready. And we're getting the distance. We know it's far. We know it's over 2,000 because we can't laze it with our rangefinders. So we're cross-referencing the map. We're using grid, we're putting the grid in to our dagger, and we're looking at the map, we're measuring. I'm like, all right, it's at least 2,400 yards to that wall where they're at. So at the time, my point man was on the gun. He was laying on the gun. We've been there for 2 days. You can't sit on the gun on the scope for 2 days. You pass it off. You switch out. So he was in the gun. He never got a kill. So we like to also try to spread the wealth. Hey, you hadn't got a kill yet. You're gonna be on the gun today. So anyway, he's seen the guys. I seen them. We start getting all the data together. I put the data on the gun, but our scope maxes out. We can't, the max effective range of the 50 caliber sniper rifle that we're shooting, the Barrett 50 cal, is 1,800 yards. So it's past the max capability of that gun. So with that, you got to know how to do mill holes. So like educated Kentucky windage, basically, like hold a little higher, be able to calculate that in your mind, read the mill dot pattern that's in the scope and go a little higher. And basically he maxed the scope out. He took a shot. He wasn't a sniper school trained. He was good, but he wasn't school trained. So he fired his shot. He was about 300 yards short. So short that the guys didn't know they're getting shot at yet. It just kind of seen a poop in the desert. And he was like, fuck. I'm like, yeah, you're way short.
That's a big miss, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, you're way short. He's like, I don't know. I can't hit him. It's too far for me. Because he had the scope maxed out at the elevation. So there was nowhere else for him to go. I was like, all right, let me get on the gun. So I was like, rule of thumb with the Sasser, it's 50 cal. If you can see him, you can fucking hit him. You just got to know where to hold. Right. So I got on the gun and I said, okay, walk me on. I'm about to take a shot. Tell me where I hit. And at this time, because he told me where he was holding, he was looking in the scope. He had it maxed out. So I just took that picture of the scope that was on these guys and imagined it was on top of the scope. And when I did that, I was looking at a cloud. Right. So I've got my scope, my crosshairs are on a cloud in the sky. That's how high I'm holding. But I knew from my calculation and knowing the reticle that my visualization was correct. I knew where I needed to be. So I was like, I'm going to fire. You tell me where I hit. I fired. Boom, hit the wall right where they're at. He's like, oh, you're fucking on them. You hit the wall. The windage is good. Stay right there. Like, all right, staying right here. So put a fresh mag in, 10 rounds. And then, the guy's asshole puckered behind that wall. They're like, what the fuck was that? Because they don't even know we're there, right? They stood up and shot an RPG. And that's what made me fire. They stood up and shot an RPG. We fired our first round. We're short. I jumped on the gun, fired, hit the wall. Now they're like, oh, fuck, these guys see us. So we waited a couple minutes. They started getting ready to walk out. And the first guy walked across this little opening with a wall at his backdrop. He started walking across. And I let him go. But I'm holding right in the middle of that wall. So as soon as I see them all coming, when they all start to peek out, I'm going to drop an entire mag of 10 rounds of the 50 cal and hopefully kill them, or at least a couple of them. So he's like, all right, they're moving. They all started walking. Once they got to a certain point where I was holding, I unloaded a whole mag. Boom, 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 boom. It's about a 6-second time of flight at that distance. So it's a long time. Like 1, 2, oh, fuck. And then you've seen the rounds impacting right on their bodies. And the round, you can see the impact that our rounds make because it's called a Rothfuss round. It's kind of like a mini tank. I don't want to say mini tank round, but it's a Rothfuss round is basically, it's a 50 cal round is this fucking
massive.
Big. Inside of that projectile with the Rothfuss round, there's a tungsten penetrator. It's like a tungsten steel. And the goal of it is to hit a vehicle or hit an engine block, penetrate in, and then around that tungsten penetrator is zirconium particles, which is like incendiary. So it lights on fire. So the point is that round hits an engine block, lights on fire, burns the truck down. But that's the only rounds we get issued is those rifle rounds. So when it hits a person or it hits anything, you can see because it flashes. And then all you seen was their bodies, just the flashes engulfing their bodies. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. So then we're like, oh, fuck, we got them, man. And then, a few minutes go by. We're still engaging. We see people popping up and stuff. We still engaging and shit. But basically that all stops. So we send out a squad, infantry squad, to go do a battle damage assessment to check out the area that I was shooting at and see if anybody was dead or see anything. They got there and they're on the radio like, yo, JT, man, there's shit everywhere. Blood everywhere. Fucking chunks of skin. Fucking, these guys are fucked. Like, if they ain't dead, it's a miracle. It's like, there's bloody rags, bloody blankets, bloody towels, like, just fucking carnage. And so a couple days later, got confirmed that 5 guys died that day. I don't know if it was all 5 guys on that shot or if it was other guys that we'd shot, but it went down in my fit rep, which is like your performance evaluation, like that your boss gives you. It's like an official Marine Corps record. It's, the CO put in there 5 MEKA, this operation, this day, whatever. And so with that, I never told that story. I've told it a few times, but it wasn't a big deal because back then that kind of stuff happened all the time. It was a long shot, but I never knew there was an official way that you could get anything recognized, or, that you hear about somebody had the longest shot. Well, how do they know that, or who determined that? Never even thought about it. And I did a podcast when I became the president of the Scout Sniper Association. I started putting myself out there to put the Scout Sniper Association out there because it was so important to grow the association and help out fellow Scout snipers and their families. So I was like, I'm gonna start doing podcasts. I'm gonna start putting myself out there as the face, start attaching a face with the association, and see if we can grow it and start bringing in some good fundraising and honor the legacy. Let people know who we are and what we do. And I was on a podcast. That story came up. And then he labeled the title of that podcast, Longest Confirmed Kill by a Marine. And that started bringing the conversation up. So people started asking, what is the longest? Is yours the longest, or what is the longest? And so we started researching it. And the longest one ever confirmed, documented, was Carlos Hathcock in Vietnam. It was like 2,100 or something like that. 2186 or something. So mom's was further. So, I was like, all right, well, mine is further. Let's, but it's not about me, right? It's not about me having the longest shot. It's about bringing eyes to the Scout Snipers and our legacy because they just did away with the program. And I wanted to do everything I could to make sure that we weren't letting, although the program was going away, Scout Sniper School was going away in the Marine Corps, I didn't want to let the legacy that we've lost, the legacy be lost. Because if you're not telling stories, they're not being heard. And it wouldn't take but a few years of after that school being shut down. If people aren't talking and telling stories, that goes away.
To be forgotten.
So that's been one of our initiatives with the SSA is get people to tell their stories.
Why did they take away the sniper school?
They did a new Force Design 2030, they called it. And I don't know, they did away with Scout Sniper School in the Marine Corps. They did away with tanks in the Marine Corps. They did away with artillery, or some artillery, I think. But yeah, I don't know, it's not being received well. Pretty much everybody thinks it's a huge mistake and it'll come back. We're not sure though right now at this time, but our mission with the Scout Sniper Association is to make sure that the guys that did serve and sacrifice, their stories are being told, and that we're honoring them.
Does that make you question everything you've done? What was it for if they're taking it away? Or is it just because times are evolving and things are changing, where they don't really need them? But again, with the way things are, you're going to always need the best of the best, for people to protect. But how is that feeling? Is that a kind of love-hate feeling that you question everything you've done for the cause?
I wouldn't say I do, because I had my time and I served during the conflicts. And
was there people actually serving as a sniper,
yeah.
and then they've took their job away.
Right. So the most recent generation of snipers over the last few years, they're the ones that I think are feeling it more than anybody because, say you join the Marine Corps in 2018, 2020 to become a scout sniper, and 2023 the program shuts down, and you're like, what the fuck? What am I gonna do now? Or you were a sniper serving in a billet, serving in the team, and then they take away the school, take away the MOS, and now you're a school trained sniper in the infantry. Like, what the fuck do I do now? Where do I go? So they created something called Scout Platoon, which is something the Army does, and it's basically just a watered down version of a scout sniper. They just took the sniper part away.
What makes a good sniper?
What makes a good sniper is somebody that can independently operate, make decisions. They don't need to be told what to do. They can make decisions on the fly. They can be an on-scene decision maker. Of course, you have to have patience, and just you can't ever quit. No quit, but patience for sure, because you're going to be sitting there in spots sometimes for 3 days, 4 days, in the sun, no shade, no nothing, living in a hole, living in fucking sheep shit in a swamp, and you can't say time out.
I want to go home. I need the toilet. I want a clean shower.
Yeah.
How far do these rifles actually go then? When would it eventually go to a stage where there wouldn't be any sort of impact, or there wouldn't be any sort of harm to anyone? How far can the actual bullets go?
There are sniper nerds that know that. I'm not one of them, but there are guys that know that. But I don't know. I mean, the max effective, and when I say max effective, that is like if you put the 50 caliber sniper rifle that we use, the Barrett M107s, you put that on a vise, and you've got an electronic trigger. You're not touching it. So there's no human error, right? And you fire that gun at 2,400 meters, and you fire 10 rounds. None of those rounds are going to hit in the same spot. They're all going to hit. You've got about a 70-inch group that it's going to hold. How tall is the average man? 69 inches? 68, 69 inches. So you're talking a group just based off the ballistic coefficient of the gun and how accurate it is and the ammo and the barrel, and 70 inches. So that means one's going to hit here at 70 inches, one will hit 70 inches down low, one might hit 70 inches to the right, 70 inches to the left. It's just going to be a 70-inch window that these rounds are going to hit in. So as you start pulling it back, that starts tightening, of course, right? As you go further, that starts opening.
What else have you got to judge with it? The wind, has it got to do the spin of the earth? What's the key ingredients to be on point? Or is it all to do with touch also? And how do you judge the actual perfect shot?
Well, so a lot of factors go into long range shooting, precision shooting, so of course the wind. So we've got calculation and formula that we can put in and gives us our wind call, what we need to put, how many clicks on the rifle do we need to put the windage, either right or left, right? Same thing with elevation. So our elevation, the same thing. You have different clicks and different numbers for the range you want to be shooting at. We have all that data. The best way to really get good at that is to shoot your gun and obtain the data, get the data. So going to ranges and shooting at all the different yard lines, at all the different distances, in the different wind conditions, and keeping a log of that. So you keep your log of that, and in that data book, you've got, when the temperature's 75 degrees, this is how my gun shoots. It's when the wind's blowing at 5 miles an hour, this is where I should put my windage to the right. At this distance, my elevation should be at 3.2. At this distance, my elevation would be 4.1. And you get all this data, you gather it, and historically, you start memorizing it. And you always make a range card to have a cheat sheet. But when you're in a combat zone, you're so familiar with that gun that I could jump on my sniper rifle and not need to look at anything for the most part, as long as I had the distance, because I could judge the wind, and as long as I had the distance, I knew what my gun, where my elevation should be, because I had shot it so much.
What about the noise from them? Did it ever affect your hearing, or have you got good kind of earplugs?
No, you're wearing earplugs in combat. They tell you to. Nobody does. 'Cause you don't have time. Like when you're taking a shot, it's boom, boom. You're not sitting there getting ready. Very rare. Those couple of engagements that I had, the one that's at the 926 and the far one, those are like textbook story sniper missions that don't happen. Like you're sitting there, you're gathering your data, you see the bad guy, you get to fire, you see him drop. Those are 1 in a million. Most of the time you're shooting at somebody on the fly. They popped up, they fired, you're waiting for them to pop back up, you're shooting again, or you're shooting at the flash from a hillside somewhere, or shooting into a window where there's flash coming out. It's very rare that you know and see what you're shooting at.
Were you just looking forward to the next mission? See, every time you'd done a mission as well, was it just taking you further away from reality?
No. No, because as soon as the mission was over, we're going back to our little patrol base, and we're watching fucking Entourage.
How much is like dark humor important to get through life? I'm the kind of guy, if I'm at a funeral, I will laugh, but it's not that I'm trying to be a dick. It's just I laugh through my pain. I laugh through my struggle because I think, just laugh. But do you feel dark humor gets you through a lot of
course,
fucked up situations?
We were going back and having like 10 dudes crowded around a DVD player, like a portable DVD player, with a computer speaker jerry rigged to it, that you had to hold it to your ear to hear what was watching freaking Brokeback Mountain with like 10 dudes. They're like, "Oh no, what are you watching? Brokeback Mountain? I want to watch." And that's just what we did, man. Just if we weren't out there, we were good. And even there's one mission, man, too, that my team, this one, we crack up so much. We had a mission where we were staying at a cemetery. We had to hide in a cemetery. And it was cold as fuck. And we were hiding we were split up and hiding behind tombstones, like laying on graves, basically, right? It's like 3 a.m. and it's fucking cold. And like one of my guys, we had inter-team comms so we could all hear each other saying, right? And one guy's like, "Hey, man, this ground really sucks the life out of you, And then it's like you're sitting in church, you're not supposed to laugh, 'cause you're on a mission. It's 3 a.m. And the next person, yeah, it's dead cold out here, and then all the little inside little jokes about being in a cemetery, and just next thing you know, everybody's just dying laughing. 3 a.m, laying in a cemetery, freezing our ass off, making jokes about laying on dead people, I mean, that stuff ain't normal.
But sign me up, brother.
And it's like, and then also another thing that I like to talk about is the fact that, this is a crazy thing too, that in Iraq that we did, that was normal, is we would take occupied houses. So we would use occupied houses for missions, for hide sites. So there'd be a whole family living in there. And we would sneak in 2 a.m, 3 a.m. If the windows wasn't open, if we couldn't get in the windows, couldn't get in the door, just fucking knock on the window. And somebody come to the window, like, "Hey, let us in." They're like, "Okay." We'd come in and we'd use their house. We'd use because maybe they had a window on the second floor that was looking at an area that we needed to look at. And that was the best vantage point, or most of the time that's what it was. They had something in their house was good for us to hide in to get eyes on something. And we would use those positions.
Is there anything you regret?
No. I mean, we treated those families as, most of them welcomed us just fine, and The ones that didn't, I understand why. I can imagine being in my house in Maryland and somebody knocking on a team of fucking giant Ninja Turtle dudes full of gear, knock on my window and say, we're coming in. And you got no choice. And then they lived there with you for 3 days. And first couple times we did that, I started getting, it wasn't comfortable. It was uncomfortable, knew we had to do it. It was chaotic because you couldn't speak the language and we didn't always have an interpreter with us. So one way to combat that was like, all right, I got to start doing something to make it, I don't know, more friendly, I guess. So one of our interpreters, I had him I wrote out a statement in English on a paper, like an entry statement. And I had him translate it for me in Arabic and write it out. And so when we go in these houses at 2 or 3 in the morning, whoever the man of the house was, I would just hold it up for him. Say, hey, look, read this. And he'd read it. And it'd say something like, it was generic. It was like, we're U.S. Marines. We need to use your house for no longer than the mission requires. We will treat you, we will not harm you. We will treat you with respect. You guys, please bring us any weapons you have. Bring us any ammo, any cell phones. We will collect them. You'll get them back when we leave. You cannot leave the premises of your house. You can do your daily things that you need to do in the house, but you can't leave the compound. Basically, that's what we'd say. And then usually they would read it and give us a head nod or thumbs up. And then he'd walk us around the house. We'd get everybody out of the rooms, put them all in the living room, put a security on them. Find any weapons or ammo they had in the house, he'd bring them to us. We'd collect those, gather the cell phones, collect them. And then once we did that, bring in the sniper rifles and the gear. So where they couldn't see us, go up into whatever room we need to go to, set up our position, and then start a rotation of guys going up and observing, guys doing security. If Susie needed to go to the bathroom, go ahead. Susie, go to the bathroom. If you're going to cook, going to clean, whatever you want to do. And sometimes within a couple hours, you're sitting there watching fucking American movie with them, some kind of satellite movie in Iraq. We're watching. Remember one night we all got around the TV watching like Freddy Got Fingered or something. Like in Arabic, like laughing our ass off, the whole family. Just nuts, dude. And then we'd also bring like medical stuff and like, hey, grandma that's lays on the rug 24/7, has bed sores, we'd doctor her up. Or hey, is anybody sick? Any kids sick? And we would doctor them up. We'd give the kids like candy and shit or whatever,
How was it when it was coming to an end? Did you know it was coming to an end? Did you get discharged? How did it work?
Yeah, I had a lot of medical stuff going on anyway that I'd always pushed under the table, like injuries that were kind of too hard to start ignoring. And in Afghanistan, I had some pretty big injuries that ended up leading to me getting out. So once I got out, I went to like a wounded warrior process, had surgery, did some things like that, took care of myself. But I was also having some pretty serious PTSD issues by that time, because I was going through a pretty bad divorce. One of my, and this is a segue into that whole conversation, but a lot of, we all know about veteran suicide and Marine suicide, and we had a lot of guys commit suicide, a lot. And I would say probably right now, I could at least 20 to 25 that I know of committed suicide that I either personally served with or were in a unit with. And one of them was my really good friend. It was a junior sniper to me that actually killed himself on the phone with me with a 30-06. I heard everything. His wife there, she's screaming. He's like, he just blew his fucking head off. There's blood all over me. What the fuck? And I'm like, oh. But that was a pretty big one. And then
How was that feeling when your friend calls you and takes his own life on the phone?
It's nuts, man, because
Did you know it was going to go as far?
no. I mean, I knew that he had been struggling since he got out. He got out. I was still in. And, but he was a very emotional guy, and we all knew that. And he had his own demons. But I never seen him kill himself, for sure. He was always a cheerful comedian, big guy. Yeah, but just going through some shit, relationship problems, alcohol, whatever else he was doing, I don't know. But all those things were piling up on him, and he got drunk one day, and him and his wife were separating, and he got the gun, wouldn't let it go. So she called me, and I started talking to him, and he was kind of calm for a minute, and then he was just finally, as I started telling him, like, hey, he was just like, look, it's over, man. There's nothing else for me to do. I'm done. It's over. And then next phone call I got, they were arguing, and then she called again, and then you heard boom, and then you heard the loudest scream you could ever imagine fucking hearing, man. And then after that, that was a Sunday night. I had to go to work Monday morning, and went in my office to the platoon commander stuff and said, hey, so-and-so killed himself last night. I've got to write a formal statement today and fax it to the detectives. So I won't be around for the day. And that was it. And then you don't talk about it.
It's sad that though, isn't it, when people go into these war zones and survive it to then coming back and taking their own life,
It's sad, and it's fucking selfish, and it's now it's to the point where it just pisses me off. I used to be emotional about it. I'm still emotional about it, of course. But now it just pisses me off because it's like, and you probably know this too as an adult, your friends and stuff. You only hear from people when they're doing good. You don't hear from people when they're doing bad, right? Because they don't want to reach out because they're going through some shit. And it's I hate to say it's up to you, but if you've got friends that you care about, that have issues, and you hadn't heard from them in 2 or 3 weeks, fucking call them. And that's one thing that we try to take more ownership on, especially with the Scout Sniper Association now and running that. We put that message out all the time. Hey, hog check. We call it a hog check. Snipers in the Marine Corps are called hogs. A school trained sniper is a hog. Not school trained sniper is called a pig. A hog is a hunter of gunmen. A pig is a professionally instructed gunman. So we put it on our social media every 2 weeks. Hey, hog check. Call the guys in your platoon. Check in. And that's super important because you don't hear from people when they're doing bad. You only hear from them when they're doing good.
Yeah.
And then when something happens, you always hear that. Oh, what? So and so. I just talked to him. Fuck. That was 8 months ago. I just talked to him. That was like fucking last summer. You know what I mean?
You tend to see it's the ones with the big meerkat smile, Look at Robin Williams as well, the Canadian actor, great actor, unbelievable movies, and took his own life, You just don't know. It must be such a... Like, I was an addict back in the day with drugs and gambling, and I was really messed up in the head. I used to think about death. I used to think about it all the time. But I never had the guts to actually carry through with it. I used to think, fuck that, like, eventually thinking, I'm done, or the lights are out. It must be a mad experience, for people to... And I've said it before, it's probably the wrong words. I wouldn't say it's the bravest thing on the planet to end your own life, but it's some amount of courage to do it. Obviously, the courage is to fight and stay on. We don't want people killing themselves, but to eventually decide that you're never going to play the game again and take your lights out, there's some courage in that.
Yeah, and that's what... But like you say, you've I've never been suicidal, but at times when I've struggled and went through some of my worst times, and then you hear somebody kill themselves that you never would have expected, or you hear so-and-so kill himself, it doesn't hit home until it's somebody you really know.
Yeah.
And then once you know somebody that did it and you're like, I'm like, man, is that possible that my brain could do that too?
Yeah.
And when you start being surrounded with death, it starts making you think, you know, is that like, could I do that too? Is that going to happen to me? Like, it's really crazy to think about that shit, man. It's psychological, man.
Nobody's safe from it.
I don't think so.
You
I
know?
don't think so. I don't think you really know what it's going to be.
Yeah, what
And
second can change, and a lot of it is, I think, is women problems. You know, I was going through the family courts there for a couple of years, and I'm quite a strong character. I've been through so much in life, you know, and a lot of fucking dark stuff. But going through the family courts and having family issues, it tested me. You know, it tested me. Thankfully, I never went back drinking or taking coke, but it did put me. I put on a lot of weight. I lost myself, you know, because I eat my emotions. But it tests you, you know, and you never know what's round the corner. You're a second away, one bad relationship or a death, a family death, to then go, fuck this. People are tired as it is, you know. People are struggling with bills and pressure and social media, and everybody's battling, you know, and it's always the hidden battles. But obviously, I think it's important to touch on this sort of stuff now, all the stuff that you've seen, all the stuff that you've done. But to hear your friend fucking blow his brains out, that's a different level of pain, you know. Did that make you then question life even more so? Not that you never questioned it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot to take.
it made me really start addressing any issues that I might have. Because when you're active, you can't mention mental health. If you mention the word mental health or I'm not right, you're done. You're ostracized. You're fucking blackballed. You're a head case. So you don't talk about it while you're in. Which I think that's good and bad. Yeah, it has its purpose. You don't need to do your job, you know, that's how it is. But when you get out, you have to do it. You have to talk about it. You know, if you're going through shit, just you can't be afraid of the taboo to fucking mention it and talk about it. And there's safe places to do it. There's, especially with the military, there's what's it called? The Military One Source, which is it's a free service to active duty or vets that you can reach out, and they give you unbiased, unconnected therapy. They don't tell your command. They don't talk to your command. You know, you can do those things. They give you like up to 10 sessions free or something, you know. But sometimes you have to address, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just being willing to accept that you're vulnerable. Like I never want to be vulnerable in my life. I never was. But when he killed himself and I was transitioning out, having all this doubt, marriage failing, financial just turmoil, I started becoming vulnerable for the first time, you know, and I was like, fuck. And then it just took me to say, hey, something ain't right. I don't feel right. Like this isn't right. Like I don't feel like killing myself, but I wouldn't mind smashing my car into a tree and being in a hospital for a week so I don't have to talk or deal with anybody. You know, like just take a break from life. And when you know, that's just not normal. So, and I went through some, but as you're going through that stuff, all it does is heighten any past trauma. That stuff just starts coming to the head, you know? And when I got home from my last tour in Afghanistan, and I was back at home with my wife and, you know, my ex-wife, and trying to live a normal life, I couldn't do it. And I was so anxious at night that I couldn't sleep, first off, but I could not sleep unless I had a knife. If I could not open my hand and touch a knife, or open my hand and touch a sword, a dagger or a sword or something that I had to keep beside my bed and by my nightstand, I could not sleep unless I could just grab it. And that freaked her the fuck out, you know? And you hear a sound like the ice maker go off, you know, ice fall. And I'm like dead sleep to where I'm knife out of the bed, every room of the house, out the front door, around the house, back in the front door, right back to bed, without even. And she'd just be sitting up in the bed when I got back in bed. Like, you all right? Is everything good? Yeah, I heard something. Good? Yeah, it's good. Actually ain't normal. Like, and I never, I thought, oh, this is how it is. You're a sniper. You're supposed to be vigilant. I'm just being vigilant at night, protecting my family. No, they ain't fucking normal. Normal people don't fucking do that, and, so I decided to start talking about it and realized that I got some issues, and it wasn't all because all the horrible shit I did in combat and killing people. It was just dealing with shit, and everybody's trauma is valuable. Nobody's trauma is less invaluable or whatever, Trauma is trauma. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
policeman, a nurse, military, somebody was sexually assaulted. Trauma is trauma. And, your trauma is no different than anybody else's. And it's important that you address it.
How are you feeling now by speaking out and trying to address it and face it head on? Did you feel a relief? Did you feel a weight off your shoulders?
I felt a big relief off my shoulders, because I can open up and like be vulnerable and not care. Like, I don't care. I did what I did. I had a great career. Nobody can take that from me. If you think that I'm a bitch because I said I had PTSD and had issues, then that's a you problem. It's not.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can call you that, brother.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, but that's what you think as a guy.
Yeah.
Nah. And that's braver than anything. Being a fucking alpha male that is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means that you're aware.
Which I think is important, but like you say, there's so much ego, there's so much pride, and to show vulnerability, people do see it as a weakness. And I struggle with vulnerability because everything's fine. When you actually sit with yourself and ask yourself the question, am I fucking fine? You think, nah. But again, it's difficult for anybody to go and seek help because, like you say, everybody's trauma is differently. There's people who've got life sentences from things they've been through as kids, but the wonderful thing is people can use that trauma as a sort of reflection that people can change and you're not alone, and like so many people, and that's why people who go to meetings and GA or NA or CA or whatever it is, and it shows you these people doing these meetings 10, 20 years of speaking about it, how it can change their life, and you don't have to sit in misery. You can rewire the brain. You can change how you think and feel. It just takes time. Stay with it, stay consistent, and just try your hardest not to pull the curtains closed, because you will be missed. And a lot of people think they're alone, like people genuinely would miss you. And it's sad to think that a lot of people who do take their own life as well, they just don't want to speak out because they feel as if they're burdening everybody else with their problems, And sometimes it's important to fucking just make the phone call. But again, it's okay that me and you are trying to do our best, but some people just don't feel they have the strength to speak out. But you can find that.
Yeah, and it's not your fault if somebody does do it. That's another thing that you gotta. I've realized that now that there's nothing that I could have said that night to stop him.
Did you have blame on yourself though?
I did. I was like, what could I have said? What should I have answered the phone that second time? Should I have? I knew he was going through some shit. Should I have called him a week before? Should I have went down there and seen him? Just had the same thing happen with another good friend of ours. It was a stud, a Marine, a stud. But as soon as he got out, he just was just enveloped by addiction. And for the last 10 years, 15 years, he's been in and out of rehab. Couldn't have a normal life whatsoever. Just deep in addiction. And he was finally, seemed like he was getting through the kind of waking back up to normal life and like, all right, this ain't the way to live. Let me start trying to do something. And he started reaching out to me. And so us with the Scout Sniper Association, we helped him. We put him in a hotel for a week. We helped him pay the deposit on a house so he could get into a house. He was going to therapy, rehab, he was doing all these things. He got a job finally, working at a restaurant. And a week later, his dad calls me and like, "Hey JT, I know you guys have been helping Chris a lot, and just want to let you know we found him dead yesterday." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, man, should I have just drove down there when he was going through this shit and met with him and just took him under my wing, like, "Hey, just come with me, let's go do something, let's," you know, was me just talking to him on the phone and texting, was that not enough? Should I have, you know what I mean? What could I have done? There ain't shit I could have done.
No.
You know? And that's just,
When people decide it's time, there's nothing that can be said because they feel a relief.
yeah.
I worked for Chrissy's House, which is a 24/7 suicide centre. We used to have people come in the door with rope burns in their neck where the rope used to snap. But one of the kids did say, when as soon as he'd try to hang himself, his first reaction was, "I still want to be here. I don't want to do it." And thankfully the rope snapped. But I think people don't get that realisation, you know. Some people are in just so much pain mentally that they just want to get away from it, you know. And you can never blame yourself for reaching out and trying, because we can't save the world. You know, the main thing is to save ourselves. How's life like now? How do you balance it out?
Man, I couldn't, to go from where I've came from, my childhood, to the military, the things I've done, the life I've lived, to being to where I am today. I couldn't have wrote a better story. You know what I mean? I mean, my life now is basically like a dream, man. I've got the best wife you could ever imagine, the most beautiful kids you could ever imagine. You know, they all love me unconditionally. Same, you know, and we're just blessed beyond means with family, and it's going great. You know, running this association for the last 2 years, you know, as the president, and being able to help other snipers and give back and pull guys out of the gutter that are hurting, and it's just such a, I don't know, it's like a 360, you know what I mean? And then, you know, now I said, you know, I worked for the government for years and then resigned, and I live in Germany now. You know, we just relocated to Germany. My wife's military still, so she got orders to Germany, and I left the government and started a new career, doing like defense sales now. I'm like a regional account manager for Europe. So I'm living in Germany, traveling all over Europe now with the family, and a great new job, new career, and you know, things are going great.
Do you think it's easier for your wife because the life that you've led to understand you a bit more? Because people who are not sort of serving or doing that sort of stuff, it must be difficult to be around, not having some sort of just of what you've actually been through.
It's a lot easier being with somebody that's in the military, for sure, because she gets a lot of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's just, you know, people in the military are just very resilient, you know, and picking up and going and doing things on the fly. Don't stress her out, you know, so it's pretty great. And she's down for the adventure too, you know, and she's like my cheerleader too, you know. That's what you need.
Yeah, I think that's important for a man, is to have someone, because we have down days. Sometimes we don't want to speak about it, but it's just knowing that somebody's present and not giving you any more shit. The last thing you need is having the weight on the world on your shoulders, going home, and it's even more pressure, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody to understand that, yes, we fuck up from time to time, we're human, you know, but just having that presence, everything's going to be okay. Sometimes that's all a man needs to give him more energy to kick on to the next day, you know?
Yeah.
But for anybody who's watching, brother, who's in a life of struggle, what advice would you have for them?
If you're going through anything and you come to a realization at any point that you don't feel right, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. Reach out to someone and address it, because if you don't address issues, it just gets worse. You know, I think that's a big thing that people, you know, live with their whole life, you know, and it's no different than not paying that parking ticket. It's gonna get worse. But That's one thing. And then also, just not being afraid to go for what you want to do and think about other people's opinions all the time. Yeah, that's a big thing about me putting myself out there now and telling stories and being on podcast and being the face of this association is it's you still got haters, and those people, you can't let them affect what you're doing and your path. That's something I struggled with, is even telling these stories and coming out there, just because, especially right now, the military veteran community and the military influencer community is facing a lot of blowback from guys out there claiming like the stolen valor shit, and guys they have big podcasts and big followings that are full of shit starting to come out now, and
Yeah.
so it's making a lot of vets not want to tell their stories even more because they don't want criticism. And like I say, it's my story. I don't give a fuck what you think about it.
Yeah, fuck everybody else. You're going to be criticised. No matter who you're fighting for, who you support, what you do in life. I put a post on my Instagram about a terrorist who says he was a ringleader of the London bombings. He got 20 years. The judges just says, I wish him all the best for the future. He's getting released. People were in the comments saying I'm being a paid show, this and that. I'm just promoting someone who's a British terrorist that's going to be wandering our fucking streets, who was involved in... He was setting up terrorist training camps in America. He got 20 odd years. He's just getting released, and the judge says, I wish you all the best for the future. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And people are criticising me, British people. And I'm thinking, where's your head at? But I get it. People see the world. Everybody's different. But I'm just trying to shed more light on how fucked up the system is,
Yeah.
For people who maybe wants to contact you, maybe ask for a bit of advice, who's maybe struggling, how can they get in contact?
So with the USMC Scout Sniper Association, we have a website called scoutsniper.org, scoutsniper.org. You can go there and see everything about our association if you want to donate. Everything, we're a complete nonprofit, 503c1. Not a dime goes to anybody on our board of directors. Every dime that we bring in goes straight towards providing services for Marine Scout snipers and their families. However that is, we have to do it. And also holding events to get snipers reconnected. We call them hog calls, and they're like gatherings, like basically mini reunions. We do those a lot. But really it's just about honoring the legacy, making sure that the stories are told, making sure that we're taking care of their families and the snipers. And then, of course, I have all my own personal social medias. You can put that in the comments. But doing a lot of stuff. And I'm just glad that you let me come and tell my story and tell the world about the Scout Sniper Association and the legacy we've left throughout the conflicts in the world.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, brother. Again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your honesty. Anything I can ever help with in the future, you have my number. Would you like to finish up on anything else, JT?
One more thing. We do have a new, we're trying to build a fallen sniper war memorial, like a monument or a statue. And we've got the site picked for that. It's in Quantico, Virginia. It's a big fundraising undertaking that we're trying to do, and it's a slow process to raise money for something like that. And we created, with that initiative and wanting to do that, we created a sister organization to the Scout Sniper Association called the Marine Scout Sniper Heritage Foundation. And the Marine Scout Sniper Heritage Foundation, their purpose and mission is to do a comprehensive research, documentation study of all Marine Scout snipers from World War I all the way to present, who they were, who died in serving a sniper billet in the Marines, and catalog all that stuff, and basically build a history for us. That's one mission. Another mission is to build that statue, fundraise and get that done. So that's the Marine Scout Sniper Heritage Foundation, and that's another initiative we have right now that we're trying to raise money for.
Anything you set your mind to, you seem to achieve. But Jai, listen, for coming on today. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Keep up the great work, and I wish you nothing but the best for the future, brother. God bless.
Thanks, man.